Hey, it's Madeline. I hope you're having a great day as always. This tutorial is for my corset back style crochet top, and it uses pretty simple stitches and has thick straps to make it easier to wear with a bra underneath. So I hope you enjoy this one. If you do, then click subscribe and put on those notifications so that you know next time a video goes up. And thanks to all my current subscribers as always. Definitely let me know in the comments what you think of this one. Okay, enough talking and let's get started. Okay, so we're going to start off just making a slip knot, whichever way you normally do that, and then chain 4. Now once you've chained 4, you're going to work your first stitch into the second chain from the hook. So you're going to skip that 4th chain and go into the one before and put in a half double crochet stitch. Then in the next chain, you're going to be putting in 3 stitches. And this is where you start to alternate your stitches. So you start by putting in a single crochet, then a half double crochet, and then another single crochet. Then in that final chain, you're going to finish with a half double crochet. So now you have 5 stitches in that first row. And what you're going to do is chain 1 and turn your work, which is the same step you're going to do at the start of every single row. So for row 2, this time you're going to start off with a half double crochet, skip that chain that you just made and go into the first stitch on the previous row, then we're going to be alternating increasing each row. So instead of going into that second stitch along, you're going to go into the first stitch again and you're going to put in a single crochet stitch. Then you're going to put in a half double crochet in the next stitch. Now the third stitch is your middle stitch. It's the middle one out 5. So in this one you're going to do an increase by 2 again. So we just finished on a half double crochet, so we'll do a single crochet stitch, then a half double crochet, then another single crochet. And then we'll finish this symmetrically with how we started by putting in a half double crochet in that next stitch, then a single crochet and a half double crochet in the last stitch to finish. Now we'll do row 3, so chain 1 and turn your work as always. And when these start to get a little bit longer, what I like to do is to mark the center stitch as you go. So in this case, we now have 9 stitches, so the middle one is the 5th stitch. So now we're going to go half double crochet. Always start with a half double crochet. On this row, the odd rows, we don't increase. So it's a half double crochet in the first stitch, a single crochet in the second stitch, a half double crochet in the third stitch, a single crochet in the fourth stitch, and then in the fifth stitch, your middle stitch, we're going to do that increase again. So we just finished with a single crochet, so we go half double, single, half double, and then you guessed it, we're going to continue symmetrically down the other side. And as we just finished with a half double, once I've sorted out this yarn, we're going to put in a single crochet. But first you can quickly pop in that stitch marker if you want to for remembering on the next row, and then we'll continue with that single crochet, half double, single, half double. Chain 1, turn your work, and this is row 4, so it's an even row, and that means we are going to increase at the start of the row and at the end. So that is a half double crochet and a single crochet in the first stitch to start with, and then continue with your alternating stitches, making sure to do that increase in the top stitch, the middle stitch with your stitch marker, and continue this row all the way to the end. Now you just want to continue this pattern until your cup is tall enough and wide enough. So it should be that it's wide enough to go across your breast entirely, and then it should be tall enough to come up to the centre of your breast, and then we'll work on the top of the cup together. Okay, so for me, this is the size that I need. I did a total of 13 rows. So that's just me confirming to myself that I have 13 rows before I finish. And now we can start working on the upper part of the cup. So chain 1, turn your work as always, and then you're going to start with that half double crochet, single crochet, half double crochet, and you're going to alternate that all the way along the top. So when you've finished and you potentially put your stitch marker back in to mark the top, here you're just going to keep working across without doing any increases, and this will start bringing in the top of the cup so that it starts to curve in around the top, and will provide you with a bit more coverage. So I repeated that step for a total of 4 more rows, so 4 rows of just no increases. And here you can see the shape that makes, so it's starting to properly form into the cup. And then I decided to do an extra row where I actually did a decrease at the top. And you might not need this, but I just find that I need something to pull in a bit more at the top because most of the weight is at the bottom, and it just helps with the shape. So try it on and see how it looks to you. This might already be completely fine, but I'm just going to start the same way as always with the half double crochet, single crochet alternating. Then when I get to roughly the middle stitch here, I'm going to do a decrease, and I'm doing that with a half double crochet stitch decrease just because it fits the flow better, because I'd finished there on a single crochet. So what I'm doing there is pulling through both. Then my next stitch is a half double crochet, and I'll just continue along to the end of the row. So I finished doing 2 of those decrease rows, and this is what it looks like. So definitely keep trying it on, make sure when you get to this point that it's wide enough and it's high enough, and then we can add on the strap. So the strap is going to go halfway up the cup. So where you just finished that last row, you're going to chain 1 and turn your work as always. I've already done that here. And then start off like you normally would with your alternating half double crochet, single crochet stitches. So I finished with 39 stitches on the last row before starting the straps. So obviously that doesn't divide perfectly by 2, and I decided to do 19 stitches for the width of the straps. So you can decide how wide you want them to be here. I find that when they come halfway in, they cover a balconette style bra strap really well. So if you want to wear a bra underneath, that could be useful to do as well. So when you finish this row, you will have the start of the strap. So once you've chained 1 and turned your work, we're going to start decreasing on this next row of the strap. So you're going to skip that first stitch and work into the second one. And so for me, this is a single crochet stitch. You can see because of that gap. And then I'm just going to continue working along, alternating the stitches until we're back to the end of the row, and I will meet you there. So just finishing up with a half double crochet on this end. And on the outside of the cup, so what is going to be the underarm section, I suppose you could say, or the bit that's going to go nearest the shoulder, we're not going to decrease, that stays straight. So just chain 1, turn your work and go straight into the stitch that is right after that chain, and continue alternating all the way to the end and work into that very last stitch. For me that was a single crochet. Chain 1 and turn your work. And then on this row we are going to decrease again. So you see the pattern forming here. When you're on this side of the strap, you skip that first stitch and you work into the second stitch. And when you're on the other side, you don't decrease, you keep it straight. So I repeated this for 22 rows in total, and when I finished here I have 8 stitches in the row, so that's the width, 8 stitches. And once I've reached this stage, which is kind of quite high up on the shoulder and it's now going to go over the top of the shoulder and down the back, I want to stop doing the decreases. So I'm going to start working in that first stitch on each row. And the other side, of course, is continuing to be a straight line. So there's no decreases, on either end of the row. Just work 8 stitches, or whatever width you're working to, backwards and forwards for as many rows as you need. So the tricky thing is here that obviously this strap is going to go over your back and it's going to connect to the body piece, and you haven't made that yet. So what I did was I did about 10 rows of this, 10-15 rows, kind of approximated how many it would need, and then I left the yarn attached. It can be a bit of a pain when you're doing the other part having the yarn balls attached, but I just preferred that to cutting them off. You could cut them off and then you can easily just start again later if you need to add more rows. If you do too many, that's great, you can just undo some later on. So either way, we will repeat that for the other side, all those steps, so that you've made the cup and you've made the strap for 2 different pieces, and then we can start putting them together. So you can see we've got that last row at the top of the cup, and you want to find that very last stitch and just pop your hook through there, and then take your new ball of yarn and lay that down the back, and just make that a little bit easier for you to see. I can't decide if it needs to be closer or further away. Pull that yarn through, and then you're going to chain 1 to secure. That doesn't count as the chain, that's just to secure that into the stitch. Then pick up the other cup, and you're going to go into the equivalent stitch on the other cup, so that last stitch, and pull straight through with a slip stitch. So now you're kind of starting to work in the other direction to where your hook currently is. So this is where it feels a little bit tricky to start with, but it's not that bad. All you want to do is just push the yarn ball through to the other side so that your yarn goes underneath the work. So it's kind of coming out towards you, down the bra cups. And then rotate your work around so that it's facing away from you. Now we're going to be working down that side. So what you want to do is go straight into the side of the first row there. Find that side of the first row, find a comfortable gap to push the hook through. And then pull through that yarn that you just picked up there and pull through for a slip stitch. So I'm just pulling that original chain tight so we don't get it confused. There's that slip stitch we did straight under our hook, and the slip stitch to connect across the top. And what we're going to do now is we are going to skip that last one we made and go into the one we used to connect right in the middle. Might be a little bit tight. I did mine a little bit too tight. So just wiggle your hook in there. And then in this one we are going to put in a single crochet stitch. And that is definitely the trickiest bit. From here it's quite simple. What you're going to do is you're going to start working into each side, connecting the 2 together. So you're going to want to go into the side of the row of the other cup, and you're going to put in a slip stitch. Now you're going to go into the next row, so find the side of the next row down there, and you're going to put in a slip stitch in this one. I'm just trying to make sure I don't go under too much of the row, so I'm trying to grab that loop at the end, put in the slip stitch, and then you're going to turn your work. So now you've got that turned around, you're going to skip that last slip stitch. You're going to skip the last slip stitch you made, and you're going to go into the second slip stitch, and that middle stitch that you made was a single crochet, so you're going to start with a half double crochet. So yarn over and wiggle a half double crochet into that slip stitch. Hopefully you've learnt from my struggles and you're doing these looser than I did when I was filming. And then in that middle stitch, that last one you made, you're going to put in a single crochet. So just double check you're just going under the two sides of the V-stitch there, because it's all a little kind of jammed together at this point. And then, you've guessed it, you're going to connect the other side. So what you're going to do is find that next row that hasn't been worked into yet on the other side and put in a slip stitch. Then you're going to go into the next row and put in your second slip stitch. Turn your work again, and that row is getting a little bit wider. So you're going to skip the last slip stitch you made and you're going to work in the next. And we know now that we have a half double crochet, single crochet pattern. So this first one here, we're going to put in a half double crochet because that's our single crochet stitch there, and then a half double crochet. So start off, yarn over, half double crochet stitch, single crochet stitch, and then a half double crochet. So I'm sure you've got this pattern now. You're going to find the next row that you haven't worked into yet, and you're going to join with a slip stitch, and then you're going to slip stitch into the next one. So we've turned our work again, ready for the next row, and we're going to put a single crochet into that second slip stitch, then alternate along, and we're just going to keep repeating those steps. So each time you get to the other side, you put in a slip stitch, another slip stitch, turn your work, you skip that last slip stitch, you do your alternating stitches across, and you keep going till down at the bottom. So keep repeating this pattern, and I'll meet you when you get near the bottom of the bra cup. Just remember that when you get to these last stitches, they can kind of be a little bit hidden behind that strand when you're doing the slip stitches and turning. So just make sure you go under the V-stitch only, just pay attention to that last bit, and then you won't have any other problems. And just ignore me double yarning over there while I was trying to demo. It's a normal half double crochet, and then just continue down the cups. So this is what it starts to look like when you're further down, and you can see when you've reached the bottom there is when you did that very first row, so you're going to have that little kind of gap at the bottom, and you can see there that very last row on the side. So I'm just going to work into that with a slip stitch, And that is finished off. So I'm going to pull that yarn through and leave a reasonably good tail to work in. Grab my scissors that are always miles away and give that a quick cut, and then we can weave that in. And there's what it looks like. So now I'm going to show you how to do the sides. So this is the side going under the underarm and around the back. So what you're going to want to do is to measure around your back from the edge of each of the bra cups, so roughly where they stop on the edge of your breast, and then measure all the way from one side to the other and take off 2 to 3 inches. I took off 2 inches. Of course, the more inches you take off, the wider the corset tie is going to be at the back. So you're going to divide that length that you have by 2 and then make a chain that is that length. So this chain that I've got here is that length, and we are going to attach it onto the side here. So what I'm doing is finding which row is aligned with the top of the bra cup, and then putting my hook through, then attaching that with a slip knot, then you're going to slip knot into the next row, turn your work, and then we can start working back along. So in that first stitch we're going to do 1 increase. So we're going to start by putting in a half double crochet, and then that same chain space we're going to put in a single crochet. Then we're going to continue our pattern where we alternate, going half double crochet into the next chain, single crochet into the chain after that, and continuing all the way to the end of those chains. So my last stitch is a single crochet, and then we're going to chain 1 and turn our work. So you should be working down the side of the bra cup section, so not up towards the straps. And once you've turned your work, you should be working the right way now. So we're back to doing our single crochet, half double crochet repeats all the way until the end of the row. So the second row is almost complete. I've just got one more stitch to put in before we rejoin to the bra cup and start the next row. Now this one can be a little bit tricky because you almost want to go back into the same stitch you just worked in like that. It's quite easy to do, but you're going to be adding a stitch. What you've got to do is find that V stitch underneath. It's kind of hidden behind the thread that was part of the slip stitch from the previous row. So you want to make sure you find that behind there. Might have to wiggle your hook in a little bit initially, and make sure you go onto both sides of the V-stitch to put in the last half double crochet or single crochet, whichever stitch you're doing. Then in that last stitch we're going to be doing an increase again, so add either a single crochet or a half double crochet in that same space, and then we are going to reattach to the bra cup. So to join, we're going to slip stitch into the next row on the side of the bra cup, going into the side there, put in a slip stitch, and then we secured that row. So that's going to be the end of row 2, and to start row 3 we're going to want to slip stitch into the next row on the side of the bra cup. So looking for that next row and putting a slip stitch into the side, turn your work back around, and then we're just going to be repeating those steps that we did in the previous row. It will be an increase at the start of the row, so that's 2 stitches into that first stitch there. So you're going to want to skip those 2 slip stitches you just made, and you want to find that first actual stitch and put in your half double crochet and your single crochet into the same space, and then continue along the row exactly as you would from before, alternating the half double crochet and the single crochet stitches. So when you've got all the way to the bottom, it will look like this. So pull your yarn through so that you have a long enough tail to weave in securely, and just cut that off, ready to start the next side. So now once you've done both sides, the cups are done, the straps are done, and the sides are done. So all we need to do is start working down, repeating those sides to make the full back of the top. So I'm going to turn this over because that side is my wrong side. They look very similar, but all of my yarn ends are in that side. So I'm turning over to the other side. So I'm going to start working from right to left as we normally do. So I'm in the right hand corner of one of the sides, and I'm going to insert my hook so that we can start the next row. So we want to grab our yarn and attach this as we normally do with a slip stitch at the beginning of the row, and then we're going to start working along. So into that same space we did the slip stitch, I'm going to start with a half double crochet, and I'm just going to tuck in that end and work it in as we go, just to save one more yarn tail being woven at the end. Pull that through to neaten, and then I'm going to continue doing the half double crochet, single crochet alternations, and I'll meet you when we've got across the side and we get to the start of the bra cup. So at the bottom here, I'm just going to keep this really simple and put in a stitch, a single crochet or a half double crochet, depending on what you are on, into the side here of that space where we closed up the bra cup at the bottom. Just put 1 stitch into that circle kind of space where you closed everything up, 1 into the other side, and then pick up on the stitches again in the same pattern, working along. So this is after 1 full row along the base there. At the moment it looks a little bit curved, but you will find that as you do more rows it straightens out, and it looks flat when you've finished. So just keep going and repeat the number of rows that you need for the length that you want the top to be. So I've got the length that I want this to be, and now I'm going to chain 1 and start making a space for the ties at the back of the top to go. So you're going to want to work into that very first row, the one that you just finished, and work into the side there. Now I'm going to be putting in single crochets. I started doing a half double crochet automatically, but I'm going to be doing single crochet stitches up the side. And so it's just 1 single crochet into the side of each row. And just one more thing, you want to be doing this row so that the right side, the side that you want to be visible is facing you, just because it looks much nicer with the single crochets on the edge on that side. And you'll see now when I chain 1 and I turn my work, that's a much less nice kind of line on the end of the rows. So just finish so that the right side is facing you when you add in that first single crochet row. And then here I'm just double checking the number of stitches that I have. so that I can work out an even distribution for the spacing for our straps. Now I have 31, which doesn't divide perfectly for gaps, so I decided instead to put in a single crochet and then to chain 4 and leave a gap of 4. So here I'm going to chain 4, skip 4 and work into the 5th. And now you can do a different gap, you probably have a different number of rows and you can probably make it work much more perfectly, but mine is just going to have one extra single crochet at the bottom, which I don't mind because the straps are going to pull that in together anyway, or the ties at the back. So I just decided to do these gaps of 4 and to do the single crochets in every 5th stitch, and then we're going to do the ties to match that size. So I'll explain that in the next step, so just work along and finish your spaces for the ties. So here at the bottom I'm just adding in that one extra single crochet, and then I'm going to chain 1 and turn my work. So I've ended up with 6 spaces, and then what we're going to do is if you finish with 1 or with 2 single crochets, just work into each of those with another single crochet, and then in the gaps that we've made, so going into those spaces you made, we're going to secure those by putting in single crochets, and I'm putting in the number of single crochets, the number of single crochets for the number that I chained. So I chained 4, so I've put in 4 single crochets, and then I'll put a single crochet into that joining one, and then repeat this all the way to the end. 4 single crochets around the chains, and 1 into each of those joining single crochets all the way to the end. And when you're done, just pull through that yarn end, cut off with enough length to weave in, and then we can start the other side. So for this side, you're just going to need to start off your yarn. So you're going to want to put your hook into the side of the first row at the top, so you're working right to left, so top to bottom. Pull through a new piece of yarn and put in that slip stitch to secure. And like we normally do, then working the first single crochet into the same row, the same space you just put that slip stitch into. And starting with a single crochet, work all the way down and then just repeat the steps as we did for the other side. So last finishing steps, we're going to need to attach the straps to the back, and this part's really simple. We're just going to be using basically a blanket stitch or attaching those straps however you'd like. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to mark out using stitch markers on the back where I want those straps to be attached. Now I've left a pretty long tail, but you might need to just start with a new piece of yarn. So I'll let you watch how I like to do this stitch. You might have another preferred way of attaching things, or stitches you prefer the look of, but I find this stitch is very strong, so it's very good for straps and keeping it attached. So I'm going under both loops at the top there, and then coming through on the back under the top loop and also the one below that, so it's really secure. And I'll show you one more time. I then like to come down through both and again down through the top, and what I suppose you could call the third loop on that top row. And I'm letting it loop through so it becomes kind of like a blanket stitch. And I'm just going to continue that all the way to the end. And this is what it looks like on the right side when it's finished. Now moving on to the ties at the back, I like to make these ties so they don't have completely square ends, they have slightly pointy ends. I just think they look a lot nicer when you tie them. So it's actually really simple. We're just going to start with a slip knot, then chain 2, and then into the first chain, so skipping that second chain you made, you put in a single crochet stitch. And that is the beginning of the point. So then you're going to chain 1, turn your work, and in that single crochet stitch you made, you're going to put in a half double crochet and then a single crochet. So we're following the style of the stitch on the main body of the corset top. So then chain 1, turn your work, and this time you have 2 stitches. So in the first one you're going to put in a single crochet on top of a single crochet, and then a half double crochet in the same space, and then in the next one put in a single crochet and then a half double crochet in the same space. So now you have 4 stitches. Now 4 stitches is the width that I'm going to do my ties. If you made bigger or smaller gaps in the back of the corset top, you might want to change this and make it bigger. But then now I'm just going to repeat putting in a half double crochet, single crochet, half double crochet, single crochet, chain 1 and turn for as many rows as you need to make the length for the tie at the back. Now this is just a demo of a small piece, but obviously you're going to need to do enough rows to make the entire length of the straps. So I did 180 rows in total, and this is all one piece, so it's going to be pretty long, but you thread it in and out. And now I'm going to show you how to finish off when you get to the other end. So in the first 2 stitches you're going to do a decrease, so you're going to go straight into that first stitch, yarn over, pull through, and then go straight into the second stitch, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3 loops on your hook. And then you're going to repeat that into the third and the fourth stitch and pull through all 3 loops, and that is 2 decreases. So you're down to 2 stitches, chain 1, turn your work, and we're going to do 1 more decrease. So that's straight into both of those stitches, pull through all 3 loops on your hook, and you're down to 1, and that is the point at the end. And here is the finished length, the full length, with my 180 rows, and this is what we're putting through the back of the body. Now I'm just going to do an additional long chain, which you can weave in at the front and put around your neck to help provide support. So I did 220 chains in total, and I'd actually finished my yarn here, so I just pulled through, but you're just going to want to finish off, pull through that last chain, and then using a darning needle or whatever needle you have, we're going to work that crisscross pattern in the front between the cups. So I like to find the base of each of the cups there and make sure that I'm coming in from the same place on both sides, and I'm just checking down the side of the cups where I made the centre of the body and going straight through with that chain. Come out the same place the other side, and then we can start making that crisscross working up the cups. And here I'm just making that cross and then going about a third of the way up and going in through the other side. Now I'm going to take the other piece, rethread my needle and create that first cross, going in directly opposite where I went in with the other piece. Then you're going to want to cross over at the back and go in at the other side. And then make that next cross. And then same thing for working through right at the top. And this is from there where it will pull up and go around your neck for support. And then I'm just going to take the other one and again cross over at the back and finish off that last cross. And there are the two pieces coming out the top, and you might just need to do a little bit of adjustment to make the ends around the same length. This is just me being indecisive with how I wanted it to come through the top. I realised I wanted it a little bit deeper so that it wouldn't stretch any of the stitches at the top, so I just slightly changed the position. Then I decided I was going to move the other side to match it, so this is just me redoing that first one. So take your time and just make sure things look symmetrical when you've finished. Now we're just going to take the back strap and put that all the way through each of the gaps that you made, working from the top to the bottom. And I'm just going to crisscross this over as well. And then I'm just going to thread through the last two coming in underneath so that I can then tie them together over the top in a bow. And that is it. Now you have your own crochet corset back top, and I really hope you enjoyed this one. As always, any questions, just pop them down in the comments below and I will do my best to get back to you. And if you want to like and subscribe, that is always appreciated and it really helps support my channel. So I hope you have a great day and see you in the next one.